Hello again, this is Preheat. Welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. So we've done the final testing. A lot of the mythic testing we've done is kind of closing out on the bosses that we already tested before. And I wanted to give you another assessment of how Fire Mage and really all the Mage specs are feeling currently. And I'm going to start off by talking about tuning. So when it comes to the tuning of the Mage specs right now, it feels like Fire and Frost are fairly close in tuning. The damage is actually very minimal between the two. Preliminary sims I've run, which obviously the APL isn't completely optimized for them, but preliminary sims are showing that Frost is ahead by about 2%, followed by Sunfury Fire. Obviously, this could change a little bit. Arcane is trailing a little bit behind, maybe about 5% behind, but again, there's, I'm sure, a lot of optimizations to be made. This is just based off of what my intuition is telling me how these specs should be played based on other people's work and, doing small changes to basically take intuition and kind of fill the role that Aether Vision had previously in the version of the APL that Porum had mainly worked on. But I don't want to focus on the tuning too much because tuning is obviously the thing that's going to change the most. I want to really focus on the gameplay. So the last thing I'll talk about when it comes to tuning is just like Mage's place in the raid. So right now, when it comes to other ranged DPS, if you're comparing Mage against its peers, it looks like Warlock, Shadow Priest, Augmentation Invoker, these are specs, Beam Hunter included, these are specs that actually are probably overperforming. I expect they'll probably get some sort of tuning. I think Mage isn't too far behind, but it's definitely not like top 3 or anything, and I don't expect Mage to get nerfed again. I'd be very surprised if that happened. But, could be surprised. But, so tuning aside, the gameplay of Mage is feeling really good. And I was actually surprised at how good Arcane is feeling now that they changed the intuition buff and it's much shorter. Overall, I think this is actually the first time we've had a bunch of Mage changes come through where I've logged in and I've tested those changes, and I felt like they were actually all positive, kind of across the board. Now, there are some concerns still, obviously. Not everything is perfect, but I will say that overall, it's feeling much better than it was before. One thing that's really interesting is how Intuition's lower duration has actually made it feel like you have to get it out right away, and how that kind of brings it back, not quite to the same feeling as the double dipping, but it definitely helps to move it in that direction, while also, I guess, succeeding in meeting the requirements Blizzard has for Arcane's Nether Precision buff and like how this all fits together, right? Because they obviously don't want us doing the double dipping. They changed that. They're trying to find a workaround to basically give us the same gameplay without having something that seems like it might be a bug to them. And overall, I think that they've actually done a much better job this time around than they ever did with Aether Vision. It's feeling much, much better. I'm not sure if the damage is there. Like the tuning still seems a little bit iffy, but I'm sure that we'll have iterations on that. And Blizzard, they can't help but just change Arcane over and over and over again. So it's really hard to give like honestly an assessment on Arcane without like acknowledging the fact that like things are constantly changing. This is just how things have been this whole time, right? So but yeah, overall, like I'm feeling way better about Arcane, and I'd say pretty happy about how things are looking now. When it comes to Fire, I mean, Fire just has like a ton of AoE damage that basically is coming out for free. You have a pretty strong single target. You've got nice survivability. You've got a cheat death with Cauterize. You're very mobile. You don't have to worry about playing SKB anymore, which was like one of the most annoying things you could say about the spec. Ignore the damage meter right now. So a lot of this damage came from the bomb that I hit the boss with. The basically the giant ball I'd rolled up. But yeah, you can see still like even if you don't get that overpowered damage on the boss, it's still actually doing pretty good on this fight. Just there's a lot of AoE, basically a lot of free AoE to be doing. But yeah, Styx Bunk Junker is not a great boss to look at the damage meter for. But anyways, so overall, I'm kind of looking at playing Sunfury Fire in the raid. I think Sunfury Fire brings like the best kind of combinations of things that I'm looking for, but I could see myself playing Frostfire Frost in some instances. I could see myself playing Spellslinger Frost. I could see myself playing Sunfury Arcane even. Honestly, I think all 3 specs are looking pretty good, and they all kind of share mostly the same stat makeup. Like you want a lot of haste for all 3, so it kind of just works out. Like it's just really nice having all 3 of your specs have like one core stat that they want, and even though there might be like small differences in the other stats you want, overall the gear carries over. So yeah, it's feeling really nice. I'm feeling a lot better about Mage. I don't think we're gonna get more tuning down. I feel like there's just too many other classes that are overpowered right now. Mage isn't even close to the most overpowered range, not even the most overpowered class in general. Ranged in general is just like really good in the raid, so it's got like some pretty tough competition. But the playstyle itself feels super solid, and that's what I care about most. And, it feels like it really fits well in this raid too. So like one thing about this raid that's important to note is just that there is a lot of cleave. Like this is a very, very cleave heavy raid, and fire is just very well suited to this niche, along with frost too. Honestly, frost is pretty good for it as well. But yeah, overall, like just very positive. I'm surprised, honestly, that like things are feeling as good as they are on this last round of changes. And I am looking forward to 11.1 and playing Mage. I'm definitely going to lock it in. Overall, I think Blizzard maybe has finally found a stride. Maybe they're finally starting to cook again. So yeah, it might be a hot take, but I think that Sunfury Arcane is actually fine. And I actually wouldn't mind playing it in the raid. All right, so just to give you an idea of the gameplay of Sunfury Arcane, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same story as before with just some slight tweaks. So obviously before the pull, you want to use Evocation, and then you want to send your missiles. And then from here, you're going to use your Arcane Surge and your Touch of the Magi. And then you're going to start using Arcane Blast. And the big difference here compared to before is, number one, your tier bonus is going to give you Aether Attunement right away. So you need to make sure that you don't accidentally munch that whenever you use Touch of the Magi. And number two, you're going to have Intuition procs that are going to happen. And you just have to react fast. So like right here, I have this Intuition proc. I don't have much time to decide what I'm going to overlap with this Intuition proc. The amount of like damage multipliers you need on Barrage to make it worth it has definitely been lowered by the fact that Intuition is so much higher now. Like the damage coefficient on it, it's increasing it by is so much higher. And the need to use it right away definitely makes it feel like you just want to get it out right away. So like in the situation like this where I've got 2 Nether Precision and I've got Intuition here, I was using a missile so I could just barrage right away if I want to, or I could do a blast in the barrage. We'll find out later what ends up being better, but here I just opt to just get it out, just use the barrage right away. That way if I proc another one, right, I don't munch that buff. And then yeah, just continuing along. And with Sunfury, you have Burden of Power, and you also have Glorious Incandescence. So in a situation like this, where you have 2 Nether Precision and you have Burden of Power ready, what you want to do is just do a blast and queue a barrage afterwards, and that's going to consume both. And it actually does work just like you would expect. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of the old playstyle. This is something interesting. They've actually changed Arcane Soul. So this is an old change, but I feel like I should mention it again. So now our Arcane Soul lasts way longer, which just feels really good. And then also it ramps your barrage damage. Now I'm not sure if we're going to want to weave missiles in to get Nether Precision value out of this as well. I could definitely see that being the case. But I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of situations where you just want to pump barrages too, maybe an execute. So yeah, whenever you have the Arcane Soul window, you can just, pump out those barrages and each one is doing more damage. And it actually feels like a proper cooldown. And then afterwards, obviously, if you have like an Intuition proc, you're going to want to use that right away before you waste it, like I just did right here with Shifting Power. As you can see, it's really easy to waste those things. So yeah, basically having this super short expiry on Intuition, but also having it do like way more damage might just be the perfect fit to bring back the play style that we enjoyed before, where it wasn't too formulaic. It wasn't like, you could basically script out the whole rotation, right? While also giving it the feeling of like reactive gameplay. And yeah, I'd say overall, very positive. Now, my assessment of this could obviously change if there are things that we find to optimize Arcane that make the gameplay different. But I'd say as of right now, feeling pretty great about it overall. The one spec that I'm still not too sold on is Frost. I feel like Frost does really well. Like the damage on it is good, but I'm not a huge fan of the gameplay. I will say though that Frost being ahead of Spellslinger as of right now does give me hope, because really my main issue with Frost is just I hate how Gamba it feels with the Frozen Orb procs. And this is something that they did address with the recent changes by basically nerfing the proc rate, but I'm not sure if this is going to do enough to make it so that we don't feel like we're just at the casino whenever we're playing Frost. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you think if you've been able to get on the PTR. What are you most excited for in patch 11.1? Are you still sticking with Mage, or are you playing a different class? Let me know in the comments below. And also, I want to make a video talking about Flameshaper Devastation as well, because I've been playing Flameshaper, and it's actually looking like Flameshaper might actually be even more single target than Scale Commander. There's a lot of reasons why I'm excited for that. Number one is just that we don't have to deal with the details issue, right? Like we don't have bombardments kind of polluting our details anymore if we're playing Flame Shaper, so our damage is actually showing up as ours, which is fantastic. But yeah, expect to see a Flame Shaper Devastation guide coming out soon. I think I'm going to start with the Flame Shaper guide because whenever it comes to like doing PTR guides and stuff like this, there's always a pretty high chance this stuff changes. And if it changes, then, you know, I'm kind of like back to square one when it comes to my work. And it takes a lot of time to put them together. So I'm going to start with the spec I think has the least likelihood of changing again. So yeah, expecting to start with the Flame Shaper Devastation guide, and then I'm probably going to move on to a Sunfury Fire guide for 11.1. I did a poll on Twitch the other day whenever I was streaming, and that's what the chat wanted. So we're going to go ahead and abide by that decision. But anyways, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.